What is up, everyone, and welcome to the Optimus Fantasy Football channel. If you think you're seeing me twice today in the same clothes, you are not having deja vu. I was here earlier on The Express with Kevin Tompkins, and as I warned you, I would be back tonight, and I am, because we have some waiver wires to cover. And it's getting weird, it's getting wild, it's getting ugly on that waiver wire. There are far fewer players to choose from at this point in the season. And as we're ramping up for Monday Night Football, we're here to help you set those waiver wire claims this week. Evan, my co-host, of course. I'm guesting on a podcast later, so I've got guesting on my mind. It's good to see you, man. How was your weekend? How did your teams fare? And how are you feeling about week 6 of football?
Mixed results. I won in Dynasty by a bit of a hair because of CJ Stroud's 4-touchdown performance, which was excellent. And redraft, I happened to go against my younger brother who put up 190.5 points in a lineup. So it's just one of those weeks where sometimes you just make the right decisions and still lose.
Yeah, it happens. I won in my home league. I beat Herms, which I feel bad. He's my homie, but I pretty much thoroughly just destroyed him. And I'm happy to report that I also won in the Huddle League with all of the analysts that I play with. It was a decent week for me. I'm 0-10 in Scott Fishbowl, though, so don't love that. But what can you do, right? It's for the kids. We helped raise the money. We had a fun draft. It's going to be a fun season regardless. But with that, Evan, let's go ahead and get into these waiver wire players here for week 6 of NFL action. We're going to start with the quarterbacks. You can't go through a waiver wire show this week without mentioning Sam Darnold. Look, he had a really absolutely piss poor week 1 performance, right? I think he had like 5 fantasy points total that week. But since then, he has had 21, 20, 17, and 36 fantasy points. He's balling, and it seems like he's getting into the flow of this offense, Evan. Is Sam Darnold someone that you are interested in 1 QB formats, in 2 QB formats, in any format in fantasy right now as we head towards week 6?
Sam Darnold is still a QB2 until further notice. I said this last week. He's always been a mid-range QB2, and he will keep that status next week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Jaguars, at least to wide receivers, have been not too shabby at defending them this past season, this current season. 22 fantasy points per game given up to wide receivers, which is among the top teams in preventing points from wide receivers. Tight ends are also tough to come by for the Jaguars. Their defense is not stellar, but it's not given up a lot of fantasy points to other positions so far. The reason I bring up tight ends is because Brenton Strange is pretty much the best target that Trevor Lawrence has so far. So that'll be interesting against this Seattle Seahawks defense. But, I mean, enough about that. Sam Darnold will not have much trouble outperforming Trevor Lawrence as far as quarterbacking goes. He's got better functioning weapons right now. Not necessarily more talented, but yeah. So if you need a quick QB2, Sam Darnold is perfectly fine to pick up. I would not spend more than about 5 to 7% of your fab on him. You are muted, my man.
I can confidently say that we're heading into week 6, right? If you're looking for a quarterback, you've had one of these underperforming guys. He's QB9 from week 2 through week 5. I get the feeling that he might be, if you're in a real pinch, like let's say your only quarterback is Trevor Lawrence, you're in a 1 QB league, I would rather have Sam Darnold. 100%. I would rather have Darnold. Better weapons. He's doing more with them. It's a more versatile, more spread out offense with better coaching. However, I'm not going to, in 2 QB leagues, he's a must start. But unless
Easily.
you're really tanking in a 1 QB, I'm probably not going after him. But like I said, I'd start him over Trevor Lawrence. I'd start him over Jackson Dart. I would start him over Bo Nix at this point. There will be a point where he might be more startable than Patrick Mahomes. We'll see if he kind of comes back to earth here. But I like Darnold. He's my favorite quarterback on the waiver wire this week. My second favorite, and this is going to surprise you, it's Spencer Rattler for his consistency. Not a 1 QB league guy by any means whatsoever. And in a lot of 2 QB leagues, you might not need him. But he's QB 20 right now. He's outperforming guys like Trevor Lawrence, and he's completely rosterable in 2 QB and Superflex leagues.
What is helping Spencer Rattler's fantasy value is being able to connect with the talent that he has around him between Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and even Juwan Johnson for that matter, which is not too surprising that Juwan Johnson is having a better season because a young quarterback like a Spencer Rattler needs a reliable up the middle, and I haven't watched enough Saints games to see what types of routes that Juwan Johnson is running, but he's at least been a reliable set of hands. He had a down week this past weekend, but that's nothing too concerning, as we'll get into later. But Spencer Rattler at least has enough with his legs to get by if nobody's open. He hasn't thrown more than one touchdown pass since week 2 against the San Francisco 49ers. He's performing about as best as I expected out of a guy like him. He's QB 20. He's not going to be better than a low-end QB 2. He's not doing bad enough to lose his job to Tyler Shugg, and he's definitely not doing bad enough to lose his job to Taysom Hill, who I don't think will be playing quarterback in the NFL ever again. So Spencer Rattler is a guy that should already be rostered in 2 QB leagues, 1 QB leagues. You'd have to be pretty dang desperate to pick up Spencer Rattler. Don't go spending more than about 5% of your fab on him, tops.
Yeah, I'd say 3 to 5%. There are going to be a lot of people who are looking for him. And this is more for if you're desperate at quarterback, like you've got Tua and you just don't trust the consistency of it, because I know I don't. I wouldn't start Rattler necessarily over Trevor Lawrence yet, but we might get to that point where I consider him. Now, the last quarterback on our list, Mac Jones over in San Francisco. No timetable really on Brock Purdy's return, at least no definite timetable. We're looking at Mac Jones for the foreseeable future here. He's been good, though, and he's been high volume, and I think that's what I like the most about this. Most backups you see come in, they're tasked with throwing 20 to 25 times. It really dings the passing game. Mac Jones, 39 attempts, 41 attempts, and 49 attempts in his 3 starts. He has 6 touchdowns. 6 touchdowns, 1 interception in that span, and he's consistently throwing for 250-plus yards. He's not making mistakes. He's scoring. He's a guy that if Purdy ends up missing a super extended amount of time, could be a league winner type acquisition at quarterback. And I know that sounds crazy, but even in 1 quarterback leagues, he's balling out with the personnel he has around him. And if we start to get healthier, you get the Juwan Jennings back, you get the Ricky Pearsall's back, Kittle's coming back soon. Can you imagine the upside of Mac Jones in that offense if he's still starting?
Even with that being said, I would not be counting on Mac Jones for too much longer, because it was reported today that Brock Purdy is not facing any quarterback competition. It was said so by Adam Schefter on the Pat McAfee show on Monday, that it's still Brock Purdy's job to lose. They just paid Brock Purdy a 5-year extension for a big buttload of money. I forgot how much it is off the top of my head.
It's a lot.
So it is a lot, and Brock Purdy is not going to be losing his job, is the summary of this. So Mac Jones is not going to be keeping the starting job for too much longer. It remains to be seen how much longer Brock Purdy will need to miss time. It wouldn't be surprising if he misses week 6 against the Buccaneers, but at the same time, I think he'll be back fairly soon, as it's a turf toe injury that these things linger for quite a while. I've injured my toes before. It sucks. You can't run well when you have this going. You don't bend your toes well when it's such a thing that a lot of people who don't use them in an athletic setting don't realize how important they are. So Mac Jones is at least a decent ad for now if you need to stream somebody. This is a high-end streamer, in my opinion, being that the Kyle Shanahan offense is fantastic for Mac Jones. Don't go spending more than about 5% of your fab. I'm going on the low end of this one because we don't even know how much longer Mac Jones is going to keep the starting quarterback job.
Well, it all depends. I don't get the feeling that we're going to see Brock Purdy week 6. I don't think we're going to see him week 7. I don't even know if we're going to see him week 8, especially because out of an abundance of caution, they thought he was ready to come back. They gave him a week off. He came back. He re-injured the toe. This offense is rolling with Mac Jones. It's fine. And I'm not saying he's going to lose his job, but this gives Shanahan some length of rope to let Brock Purdy heal, because this offense is playing well. They're still leading their division. There's no question about they're the best team in the NFC West. They're probably still, even now with all the injuries, probably better than most of the teams in the NFC right now, because they just keep finding ways to win no matter what personnel they're missing. If they give a little bit of longer rope to Mac Jones, let Brock Purdy rest, I can see him the next 3-4 weeks being a quarterback who helps some teams get out of the weeds. just plain and simple because he is that good.
It
or
is
he
wild
has
how
been that good in this offense.
It is wild how badly misused Mac Jones was on the Patriots, a team notorious for not having quality pass catching targets. I mean, Hunter Henry wasn't enough to save that offense from being any better, but then he had to go to Jacksonville and prove that he can be a quality starter. Jaguars shareholders are missing Mac Jones on their team because he fed Brian Thomas Jr. so well. And now Mac Jones is feeding Kendrick Bourne so well, which, well, I mean, we'll get into him a little bit later, but yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of fab on Mac Jones because it's a ticking time bomb as far as how long he's going to keep that starting job. He's a streamer. Did we lose you there, Nate? Uh-oh. I think Nate just froze on me. Well, I guess we will look at... by the way, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your questions so far. We will get to them in a second as soon as we can get Nate back as well here. There he is. How you doing there, bud?
I don't get it, man. My internet's rolling. I don't know why I got booted out there. But yeah, I think we're on the same page with Mac Jones. He's a high-end streamer. If he plays longer, obviously you're going to continue rolling him out and starting him because he's playing so well with this offense. So, are you ready to move on to running back 7?
Shall we get to some questions before we do that?
Let's do that. Let's do some questions here real quick. We've got a handful here in the chat, guys. We always get to these. We just try and wait until between segments so we're not interrupting ourselves. First one we've got here is the average Texan. Second time I've seen you today, bud. Thanks for tuning in again. Is Woody Marks worth grabbing off of the waiver wire? Yes. In short, Evan?
Yeah, 100%. Woody Marks is getting enough work with Nick Chubb that he's definitely worth rostering. Even if he's only seeing 39% of the snaps because he doesn't have the hot hand in a certain game, that is enough to have some decent standalone value. This time it just didn't work out. He only got 2.4 PPR points in those leagues just because, 7 carries for 24 yards is not going to net you much in either format, but it's okay because you can afford to hold him on your bench because he's getting enough snaps to justify rostering, being that running backs are probably scarce in your 10 or 12 team leagues. So yeah, definitely go get Woody Marks because Nick Chubb, unfortunately, well, he's playing decent, but he has yet to see more than 13 carries in a season. So Nick Chubb is not going to be seeing RB1 volume ever again. Go get Woody Marks if he's available.
Yeah, I mean, and Nick Chubb is still going to get his opportunities. We talked about this earlier on the Express. And Nick Chubb's someone who's very rosterable as well, but Woody Marks is going to keep cutting in and cutting in and cutting in. And situationally, I think we're going to see a lot more work out of him when the game script calls for it. And those situations are going to bolster him and get him more volume. Plus, Nick Chubb, I mean, the guy suffered 2 brutal, massive knee injuries in his career. He's a lot slower than he used to be. He's a lot less powerful than he used to be. There's kind of a cap on the amount of work he can do as well, to your point. So I think we're going to see plenty out of Marks. Definitely rosterable. Average Texan also wants to know over on Twitch, Lou. So I have Evan. So I have Baker Mayfield and CJ Stroud. Is Sam Darnold worth picking up over either of those two? Borderline definitely, CJ Stroud.
Definitely not over Baker Mayfield, but
no.
Over CJ Stroud, this is going to depend on the week, Average Texan 1. So Sam Darnold will have some higher potential weeks compared to CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud happened to have his best game of the season so far over a very overrated Baltimore Ravens defense that is not being led well. I mean, I'm not going to get into my rant about John Harbaugh and how I think he needs to stop being the Ravens head coach, but yeah, this was finally the breakout game we were looking for from CJ Stroud. 4 touchdown passes on 244 yards, 23 of 27 passes completed, and this was off of just 80% of the snaps. They brought in Davis Mills. The blowout was so bad. So, yeah, CJ Stroud should have more games where he's throwing more than 1 touchdown. Whether or not that happens against the Seahawks in week 7 remains to be seen. He's going on bye next week. Seahawks are a tougher defense. So, yeah, I would say, being that this sounds like a 2-quarterback league, Average Texan 1, hold on to Stroud for now. Even then, keep an eye on rankings as well. Sam Darnold probably will have a higher projection week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I mean, you could make a case to drop Stroud to go get Sam Darnold at this point.
Yep. Yeah, no, you definitely could. Let's move on to the next one here, Evan. We have got Cinco de Manger. If you're not following it, go check out optimusnews.bsky.social. Carly over here runs it. It's phenomenal. She's on top of it, and she is ahead of everyone else in the industry right now. I know the answer to Haskins or Vidal is neither, but what if we're desperate?
It's a fantastic question.
It's Vidal for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's still neither, but it looks like it's going to be a nightmare split backfield because Haskins still got more snaps than Vidal. I'm sure that the Chargers want to see what they have out of Vidal, but I mean, if you are ultra desperate, and I mean ultra desperate at running back, I'm still going to go Haskins over Vidal because they're going to give him the first down carries. Vidal's probably going to get like second and third down carries. This looks like it's going to be a split backfield without Hampton. It sucks because now both the starting running backs for the Chargers are gone. I think I would almost make a case to start Michael Carter over Hassan Haskins, but that's not going to feel good either.
I definitely go Michael Carter over both of these guys. If I was going to pick one for me, it's Vidal, and it's Vidal because of the receiving upside in PPR formats. I think there's something to that, and I think he's going to see more receiving work than Haskins will. But again, if you can avoid it, I would definitely avoid it. We've got Shay Ambrose from YouTube. Evan wants to know, they're in a pickle. Replaced Xavier Worthy last night in a panic. I'm down 20 in full PPR, and now I have the choice to start Worthy or Etienne in flex. What do you do?
First of all, Che, love the Garth Avatar. Never can go wrong. Wayne's World 1 and 2 are like two of my favorite movies of all time. I love the Avatar. Without getting too distracted, though, I'm sure you want to know who to start in this case. I'm still gonna go ETN over Worthy just because of the consistent volume that ETN gets. Xavier Worthy is clearly a favorite of Patrick Mahomes. He's favored more over the rest of their mediocre to terrible wide receivers they have on the Chiefs. But yeah, being that I'm sure the game actually started by now, so hopefully we're not too late for you there, Che. But yeah, ETN is definitely the move over Worthy in this case.
Yep. All right, we're going to move on because it is a little bit too late for that one. As I put up the question, I looked over to see Travis Etienne carrying the ball downfield. He has picked up 8 yards on this drive so far that I have seen. Joe Hamilton got to be Etienne as well, so I think he got the advice he needed here. We've got Brendy Bish over on Twitch. Is trading Kyron Williams for Quinshawn Judkins a good trade?
It seems like a lateral move to me. Brendy Bish, I don't think this is a trade that, in general, in regular redraft PPR leagues, there's really not much benefit to doing that. Judkins will probably have some better weeks than Kyron and vice versa. I think that's more of a even split lateral move. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, I think the same. I think there's maybe slightly more upside to Judkins just because of the Browns offense and that they're going to hyper focus on using Judkins because the rest of it's not great. And you've got a rookie quarterback making his first start last week. He's going to be green, fresh. You want to run the ball a little bit more. That also might just benefit Jerome Ford. He might get more relief work behind Judkins. I know it's ugly, but we saw it. We saw it on Sunday morning in London. So I probably wouldn't do this.
I don't see why you need to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got Seiko DeManger saying, I miss Mac Jones, signed a BTJ manager. Yeah, 100%. We've got Tron Force. I just dropped Tyjae Spears for Brashard Smith after holding Spears in my IR spot for weeks. Chasing the new shiny toy. Was this a good move?
I don't think it's necessarily a good move, but if you have to take a bet on a running back that you could be using in a flex spot later in the season, yeah, I would much rather have Brashard Smith over Tyjae Spears. Tyjae Spears is clearly going to be second fiddle behind Tony Pollard, who's going to get sloppy seconds in that terrible Tennessee Titans offense. And the running game for the Chiefs sucks because, well, when you have Matt Nagy as your offensive coordinator, good luck being good. I don't think he's going to be getting enough volume for a while. Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt are not locks to return to the Chiefs anyway, so Brashard Smith, I don't know if this is going to be his year toward the end of the season anyway, but definitely a great dynasty hold.
Yep, no, I completely agree. I love Brashard Smith, and I think long-term with the Chiefs, he's going to be fantastic. I just don't know what his value is. We've got the Chiefs taking their first snaps of the game. It's already Isaiah Pacheco out there, which shouldn't be terribly surprising. But we got a Juju Smith-Schuster sighting already. Say that 5 times fast.
Jesus.
Yep. All right, we're going to move on to running backs. The aforementioned Michael Carter will be the first one we discuss here. This isn't pretty. The waiver wire for running backs isn't pretty. But right now, quite honestly, I think Michael Carter's probably the best option available. He's stepping into an offense without a lead back. And we know Michael Carter's done it his rookie season in New York. He had, He had 147 carries, 639 yards, and 4 touchdowns. This is the guy in this offense I want. I think this is the most viable running back right now. Both running backs on IR. James Conner's probably done for the year. Trey Benson the next 4 weeks at least. He's going to be the lead back. Amari DiMercato really screwed himself dropping that, right? Sure thing touchdown. Celebrates a little bit too early. He goes in the Caleb Johnson doghouse for the rest of the season. At this point now, it's really Bam Knight and Michael Carter. Michael Carter's done this already. They're going to give him the lion's share of the volume we saw it this past weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you've already said the meat and potatoes of everything I wanted to say too, Nate. I didn't see the Cardinals game because it wasn't available in my area, but as we learned the truth on why DeMercado got benched and didn't get much more backup volume, it became the Bam Knight show, and that's when you had made that post on Blue Sky, and then I'm just reading that in Troy McClure's voice from The Simpsons, where I'm like, oh my god, I was wrong. It was Bam Knight all along. So Michael Carter is the guy at this point from the Arizona Cardinals offense. He's not good, but they're going to feed him 18 carries as they proved against the Titans. Yep. It's going to be a tougher matchup against that tough Colts run defense, so I'm not looking forward to having to even entertain flexing Michael Carter, but he is worth a guy putting on the bench, being that coming up, they do play the Cowboys in Week 9, and if Trey Benson is not ready for that one, I definitely want to flex Michael Carter for that one.
Yep, and then they've got Seattle the week after, San Francisco, and Jacksonville. So not a terrible schedule. Hopefully we've got Trey Benson back by then, though. Like, fingers crossed. Brashard Smith. They need Trey Benson. Next up on this list, Brashard Smith, who we just kind of talked about a little bit, so we'll be quick on this one. He's a guy I think going forward becomes the lead back in this offense. He can do it all. He's a 3-down type back in the NFL. He can catch, he can run, he can go between the tackles. His time will come, but right now I'm okay with rostering him. If you are really desperate, you need someone in case of emergency. I just don't trust he's going to have enough fantasy relevant volume to be more than a back end running back 3, maybe flex option rest of season, Evan.
Right now, that is the case, being that he is finally seeing more than 25% of the snaps in that Chiefs backfield, which he did against Baltimore. They were blowing out the Baltimore Ravens, which is also what gave Brashard Smith more opportunities back there. Now, that being said, I'm not sure if they're going to be doing the same thing against the Jacksonville Jaguars tonight, as we're in the first quarter of that game. But Brashard Smith is at least a guy that has shown that he can have some standalone value, making him worth rostering in the more shallow redraft leagues where you only have 5 or 6 bench slots. So if you really need a running back, you can safely take a shot on a Brashard Smith. I don't want to go more than about 8% fab tops. I'm sure somebody's going to go crazy and go like 25% fab. If that's the case, well, so be it. But I don't think there's enough to justify spending that much fab on Brashard Smith.
There's not. He's definitely a back-end stash. I wouldn't call him anything more than that. But I think he's worth the stash. And that's the thing, is he's definitely worth the stash. So deeper leagues, you've got a bench spot. You've got some guys going to IR. Get Brashard Smith in there. Next one up, Evan, is Tyler Algier over in Atlanta. I'm surprised to see his roster ship so low, 35% on Sleeper right now. He has 2 games with 16 carries this season behind Bijan Robinson. Obviously, they're on bye this week, so there isn't a lot to talk about with what happened last week. But in week 4, he had 16 carries for 51 yards and a touchdown. He's got 2 of those this season. I think that this is a player who is going to do the same thing he did last season, where he's going to snipe that goal line work from Bijan Robinson. Robinson has been so successful in the passing game. He's been so successful between the 20s, and Bijan's still going to see some of that red zone work, but Algier is a punishing back. And if they can take some of that off of Bijan to keep him healthy and active, more active in the passing game, more passing snaps, and more high value rushing snaps, he's going to get those. I think he's a flex play. He's not an RB2. He's not even an RB3. This Algier is a flex play. However, he's worth it. If you need to take a stab on someone every week, he might score a touchdown. There's always that chance with Tyler Algier. And I think that's why I like him the most, because looking at these other running backs on this list, I don't know that I can say that about any of the other 3.
I would still rather have Michael Carter over Tyler Algier, and I'll tell you why. Michael Carter is going to at least prove that he can get consistent lead back volume that may not go anywhere and it might suck, but at least you know that volume is going to be there. And if he accidentally falls in the end zone, you're thrilled. Now, that being said, you can make an argument that says, well, Tyler Algier's not the lead back. He's got that same value. He's got some games where he takes 16 carries. He can fall into the end zone. Why not Algier over Michael Carter? Because then Tyler Algier will have other game script games like against the Panthers where he only took 9% of the snaps and 1 freaking carry. So this is not Tyler Algier's backfield. This is Bijan Robinson's backfield. Now, that being said, Tyler Algier should be rostered already if he's not. I mean, I don't blame sleeper redraft leagues for only rostering him 35% of the way, being that he's the backup. He has some decent standalone value, but he's still the backup. It's not consistent. You can't really make a strong case to flex him, but he's at least worth riding the bench compared to stupid handcuffs that aren't going to get you anywhere. Algier is not a handcuff. He's definitely got some low-end flex appeal. Now, Tyler Algier, if you want to go get him, if he's available, I'd say you could make it a case to spend 10 to 12% of your fab to get him.
Yep, I would say so as well. And again, like, we're not saying this guy's a league winner. He's not going to get you 20 points. He's probably not even going to get you 15. But there are a lot of weeks where I'm scrounging for 10 points in my flex, especially with injuries and bye weeks this time of year. So he's a guy that should absolutely be rostered. Now, the last one, Kendre Miller. This is an interesting case because Dennis Allen put him in the cellar. We don't know why. We'll probably never know why. But now we've got Kellen Moore. And while Alvin Kamara is supposed to be the guy in this offense, it appears age is catching up, slowing him down a little bit. We're not seeing nearly as much volume. But I want to throw up this graphic because it's starting to get egregious. And the shift in this New Orleans offense at running back is becoming somewhat clear. You can also find this in our Unpacking the NFL Week 5 article from Carly Manger on OptimusFantasy.com. She talks about it a little bit more at length, but look at this snap share split, Evan. We've got 13% to 16% to 27 to 32 to 41.9 for Kendre Miller. On the other side of this, go ahead.
I would love to see where the snap percentages came from on Sleeper, being that they are definitely different from what we have here. Shout out FTN if you're listening. You guys crush it with data analysis. Sorry, this is FTN's data, right?
I believe it is FTN, yes.
Okay.
And then on the other side of it, we've got Alvin Kamara, who started the season with an 81% snap share in week 1, 85% in week 2, but then down to 74 week 3, 72 in week 4, 53 this past week, versus the Kendre Miller snap share of 41.9%. There's a clear shift happening in this offense at running back. It can't be ignored. It's very real. Kendre Miller is starting to gain traction. Alvin Kamara is getting older. And they're from Fantasy Points, just to toss that out there is where these came from.
Shout out Fantasy Points.
I just don't know what else you could glean from this other than Kendre Miller is starting to become the guy in this offense. We've heard some rumors that Alvin Kamara could be traded at the deadline. I don't think I really believe that that's a possibility, but it tells you what the thought process is behind this running back room in New Orleans. Kendre Miller's gaining traction. Maybe by the end of the season, it's a 50-50 split. Maybe we don't go farther than that. But in an offense with Spencer Rattler, that really isn't an electric offense that would probably like to run the ball more, do you think Kendre Miller is a guy who could, by mid-season, I mean, we're getting close to mid-season, let's say by week 10, is he a guy who could be a reliable back-end RB2 in this New Orleans offense?
That is the $1 million question when it comes to fantasy football, in my opinion, Nate. And right now, the snap percentages are telling a story that Kellen Moore definitely wants to get Kendre Miller involved. I don't firmly understand why that's the case. I think this is more of an incident in which the Saints were looking for their first win, and I think Kellen Moore was getting desperate, and he was starting to throw like fresher talent and younger, hungrier guys at the football to save his own job because he didn't want to start 0-5. He was successfully defeated the New York Giants, unfortunately, for Carly. Sorry, your Giants had to lose to them, but Kendre Miller, I have never been impressed with his first couple of years. If I'm wrong about him, that it took him 2 seasons to get good in the NFL level, so be it. He has shown zero exciting volume coming out of college, out of TCU and out of the Saints. He stunk the first couple of seasons behind Kamara. he's playing a little bit better. The Saints offensive line also stinks. He's now taking kick returns. He's also not really doing a lot with the carries that he's getting. He's been efficient, but 10 carries for 41 yards off of 39% of the snaps, well, I mean, that's sleepers numbers. That could be a little different. It's close to 40. It's looking more and more like a split backfield based off of Alvin Kamara, who is not really struggling. He's not the same running back that he used to be, but he's also not really struggling either, so I'm not sure what Kellen Moore sees out of this. So I guess that's my long-winded answer of saying that Kendre Miller, could he have some low-end RB2 value? Well, he's kind of already there, but I would not be surprised if this is where he maxes out all season long. I don't think he's taking Kamara's job. I would not be surprised if the Saints want to ship Kamara, but at this point, I don't see why they would.
I have no idea why they would either, unless they think they can get some draft picks as a return. At the most, and I think we're kind of saying the same thing in a different way here. At the most, Kendre Miller's basically a back-end RB2. He's kind of already there. He's not climbing higher than that, but I think he's worth a roster spot. In a very thin week on the waiver wire at running back, he's a good grab, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Yep. I want to get to this question real quick before we move on to the wide receivers, because it's relevant to what we're talking about now here. Average Texan 1 wants to know, Evan, are we at the point in the season where Derrick Henry is actually a bench rider now? I get it. I totally get it. We've had we're coming off of basically 4 games where we don't know who the hell Derrick Henry is. 11 carries for 23 yards in week 2 against Cleveland. Week 3 against Detroit, 12 carries for 50 yards. He gets a touchdown in that game. Week 4 against Kansas City, 8 carries for 42 yards, does not get in the end zone. Last week against Houston, 15 carries, 33 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 target in the passing game. The volume seems to be fading. Lamar Jackson is hurt. Now we've got Cooper Rush at quarterback, and we don't know for how long. They're 1-4. This is a Baltimore team that seems to be kind of falling apart at the seams. To your point, get John Harbaugh the hell out of there. What is Derrick Henry right now?
So Derrick Henry is a sufferer of the Baltimore Ravens being as dysfunctional as Nate already here described here. The Baltimore Ravens are under a leadership problem in which it appears that nobody's rallying around John Harbaugh. Nobody seems to believe in the system anymore. The opponents have already scouted out the Ravens and what they like to do. They were already at a 1-3 start where with Lamar Jackson starting, the Ravens were also not that good. It's not that they can't get it done on offense. I mean, Derrick Henry blew up against the Buffalo Bills in week 1 and then hasn't come anywhere near the same type of volume throughout the rest of the season so far. At least he fell into the end zone against the Houston Texans, but Derrick Henry, I don't believe, is ready to be riding the bench in your fantasy football lineups. You're going to be ranking him a little bit lower just because he is not producing well in this dysfunctional Baltimore Ravens team, but you're not benching him. You at least have to start him as either your RB2 or a flex option. Right now, there's no reason to believe that he'll be losing his job. He's definitely not losing his job to Justice Hill, so let's put that rumor to bed. And he's still getting the lion's share of the snaps out of all the running backs. He got 65% of the snaps against the Texans. So he's the lead back until the Ravens say otherwise. Derrick Henry, yeah, you can put him a little bit lower in how you see him, but we're not ready to bench him yet.
No, not yet, but it's not out of the question. It's really not out of the question. If this continues, this offense continues to struggle and he continues to hurt my rosters and I have players I can start over him, there's a point where I'll start it. Looking at the schedule going forward for Henry, though, I mean, we've got the Rams ahead of the bye here in week 7. Then we've got Chicago week 8, Miami week 9, Minnesota week 10, Cleveland week 11, and then the Jets week 12, Cincinnati week 13. There are a couple tough matchups in there, but for the most part, it should be fairly easy for Derrick Henry to get back on track in those games. So not saying that he definitely will, but you never know. They're asking because they've got both Dobbins and Montgomery on their bench for Henry. I would probably be starting David Montgomery over Derrick Henry.
I wouldn't go that far yet, but I love that bench. I love that bench depth that you've got there, my man. Keep it up.
Yeah, that's very solid. All right, we're going to move on to the wide receiver position. This one is maybe more interesting, maybe less interesting. It's hard to say. The first one we're going to talk about is Kendrick Bourne in San Francisco. All he does is go 10 for 140 last week out of nowhere with Mac Jones starting. In the absence of Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings and George Kittle, he became the guy in this offense. So obviously he's someone we have to talk about. I like him moving forward. If we're going to be without Pearsall, we're without Kittle for another week. We might be without Juwan Jennings for another week. And if Mac Jones starts, if you remember, Kendrick Bourne had his best season as a pro with Mac Jones at quarterback. I think he's a viable start and someone that should be rostered as long as Mac Jones is behind center in San Francisco.
Kendrick Bourne is nothing more than a streamer. Mac Jones being his quarterback only works out just because they were together in their New England Patriots days. They already have the chemistry that's there. They make it work in an offense. Kendrick Bourne just happened to be the recipient of the lion's share of the passing volume because somebody had to be. Now, that being said, there's other guys in that offense that probably could have taken it as well. You had to give the ball to more than just Christian McCaffrey, so it happened to be Kendrick Bourne. Now, that being said, I strongly do not recommend spending anything major in fab on Kendrick Bourne. I would say do not go higher than about 3% of your fab, because when Ricky Pearsall comes back, when Juwan Jennings comes back, if Brandon Ayuk ever comes back, it takes guys coming back from injury short term to erase Kendrick Bourne's high ceiling capability. So this is just a fill-in type of guy that you could probably make a case to stream him against the Buccaneers, being that they stink at defending wide receivers as well, but do not look at Kendrick Bourne as a long-term option. It's not going to happen.
Well, I can say for sure, I just kind of looked it up real quick with Brandon Ayuk, and they're still saying he's weeks, at least weeks away from coming back. We should have Pearsall and Jennings back soon, but as long, and look, I want to be very clear about this. Kendrick Bourne is not a rest of the season ad unless Pearsall, Jennings, and Kittle all end up being out for the season, as does Brock Purdy. As long as Mac Jones is the quarterback and those other players are missing, Kendrick Bourne is a guy that has a wide receiver one ceiling in those weeks, but it's those weeks specifically. Now I want to move on to another one, a breakout, a guy that I rostered 5 minutes before the opening slate kickoff. Threw him into Kings Classic in place of Mike Gesicki, and good God, am I glad I did. Ryan Flournoy over in Dallas. He's a second-year phenom. I liked him a lot coming out of college because he was one of the few players that I talked to at the Senior Bowl the first year I went. Very nice kid. No one else was talking to him. We felt bad for him, so we went over and talked to him. And now here we are. He's in the NFL. He's playing for the Dallas Cowboys. He had 9 targets, 6 catches, 114 yards. He puts up 18.4 PPR points. Evan, in the absence of CeeDee Lamb, do you think that Ryan Flournoy has given, or at least earned, a spot in this offense where he's worth a roster spot to see what happens rest of season with him, or at least over the next couple of weeks?
No, I do not. Ryan Flournoy is another guy that it happens to be a set of hands that had to catch the football. The Jets were not going to be coming back again. I mean, they tried to come back against the Cowboys, but we all knew that the Cowboys had to win. Flournoy is a guy that got an increased snap share. It was Kevontae Turpin who had to miss some time, which is he wasn't able to suit up against the Jets, which is why that we started to see more passes get thrown Flournoy's way. Turpin being out, if he can come back from this foot injury next week, that is the reason I do not want to roster Flournoy, being that the pecking order for right now and the Dallas Cowboys is George Pickens, Jake Ferguson, and then it's Kevontae Turpin when he's healthy, and then Jalen Tolbert, maybe. I mean, he's basically running more cardio out there than anything else, but he's also still getting some targets. He only got 1 against the Jets, but in regular games on a standard game script, I do not want to depend on a Ryan Flournoy to get me any relevant fantasy football volume. He would just be a waste of a bench spot. So I would say I'm out on Flournoy, but if for whatever reason you're convinced to add him anyway, don't spend more than like 1% of your fab. Just bid a buck and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, again, I don't think there are a bunch of people who are going to be running out to grab him. I think he's worth a speculative ad. He's worth maybe, if you've got an empty bench spot, you want to see if he continues producing, if he worms his way into a role in this offense, I think it's worth it. I'm not rostering him expecting much. I just want to point out that someone that we took off of our list today, and actually is in our don't roster, and I still agree with it. But Tyquan Thornton has 2 catches for 55 yards so far in this game. I know, go figure, right? Let's get over to Torrey Horton over in Seattle. I've been talking about him for a few weeks. I mean, if we're being honest, some of it was a little kind of homerish because he went to the University of Colorado, or went to Colorado State University. But he now has 3 touchdowns in the team's last 4 games, Evan. I think he's one of those guys who's going to see red zone volume. Darnold seems to trust him. He's getting some high-value targets, even though they're not a lot. Is he a guy who's worth rostering for spot plays in weeks where there's a good chance he could get one of those touchdowns?
No,
mostly
I do
like
not.
pass-heavy scripts.
I do not want to roster Torrey Horton in your standard regular redraft leagues, even for PPR. Torrey Horton is only seeing fantasy football relevancy, being that he's falling into the end zone. He's got 3 receiving touchdowns so far, in addition to a return touchdown. So that is where the lion's share of his fantasy football points is coming from. I'm saying lion's share a lot tonight. I'm sorry. I'll try to be more creative. So Horton is a guy that is not going to, when he's not falling into the end zone, he's got practically no value. Now, catching 3 passes is still pretty good, but take away the touchdowns that he gets, and you're looking at 6 fantasy points tops. So if you really don't want to take a 0, that's a guy you could plug in there. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to spend much more than about $1 in fab on Torrey Horton right now. He has to compete with AJ Barner. He has to compete with Cooper Kupp. He has to compete with Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's not high enough in the pecking order to get more volume. So if an injury occurs, we're going to be talking about something entirely different. But as it stands right now with the Seattle Seahawks receiving offense, yeah, I'm out on Horton. Don't spend more than about $1.
No, I think that's fair. We got Brashard Smith getting goal line work, Evan. You love to see it. From the 5-yard line, he runs it down to the 2, gets to the sideline. Let's see if they give it to him to punch it in here. All right.
Did we manifest that?
I think we probably did. Look at us go manifesting stuff. I love it. All right, let's talk about this last player, because this is someone I'm definitely out on. Josh Downs has kind of creeped his way into trending players this week. He had an 11-point PPR performance, but he had a 50% snap share, which is it is actually his second lowest of the season. 8 targets, which was a season high, tied. 6 receptions, tied for his season high. 54 yards was his season high. This was without Alec Pierce, and this was in basically a blowout game.
Yeah,
do you have any interest in Josh Downs?
That's why Josh Downs did better, because Alec Pierce had to miss some time, and they were rolling Ashton Doolin out there. They gave him 2 catches for 5 targets for 55 yards. He's their primary kick return guy, and he got 71% of the snaps versus Josh Downs only getting 50. 40. So let that sink in for a bit. I mean, yeah, listen, 8 targets on 50% of the snaps is good, but Josh Downs has always been low-end flex value that it took an Alec Pierce injury for him in a blowout to see some relevant volume. And Josh Downs has yet to get any red zone volume that's worth a darn, where he falls into the end zone and catches a touchdown. So no thank you on Josh Downs. I'm out on him as well. I like how you said Josh Downs' name. We're just being, he's from North Carolina, so Josh Downs.
I try and throw the accents in every here and now. We got Tron Force saying that they manifested Brashard Smith by dropping Tyjae Spears for him.
All right, we'll go with that.
Takes. Yeah, we just got a Travis Kelce touchdown, but it looks like it's getting called back on a penalty. I don't want to talk about Travis Kelce. They're starting to talk about him on like pop radio and stuff, and I've had enough. So
I hate that guy.
I don't hate him. I really don't have anything against him, and just don't want to. I hate his mustache. I do hate that part of it. I don't. If you've ever seen me with a mustache, it looks terrible. I think most people look terrible in mustaches, and I think they should be banned. We're getting ready here.
I can't grow facial hair that's worth a darn.
I couldn't for a really long time, and now here I am with a massive beard that just itches all the time. Real quick here, if there's a QB change, Evan, in Cincinnati, is everyone in Cincinnati a must bench besides Jamar Chase?
That is such a loaded, vague question, Carly, because there's not really an answer, because who are they going to put out there at quarterback? Do they trade for a guy? Do they sign a guy? Who else is left on the Cincinnati Bengals at this point? I don't even know who's backing up Jake Browning. I think it's Brett Rippon at this point. And Brett Rippon looks pretty dang good against fourth stringers and roster bubble guys. But if you got to roll with Brett Rippon, you're in trouble.
Look, dude, I've seen Brett Rippon start some games in Denver. Yeah, Brett Rippon.
Yeah,
I'll tell you
Brett
what.
Rippon farts.
I'd rather have Brett Rippon than Jeff Driscoll, Kyle Allen. You know what?
Kyle Allen was not bad on the Panthers, though.
Yeah, that was a weird spot. That was strange because he's not a very good quarterback. I don't know. And Carly just throws in, they were exploring a potential change.
Oh my gosh, Carly. We were not saying that about you.
You know what? We're going to move on to tight ends. This one's going to be quick and easy. AJ Barter in Seattle. Look, I love to see the volume. He's more of a streamer for me. He's not someone that I'm going to roster long term. I don't trust it. And really, you've got what? You've got Cooper Kupp. He's going to see volume ahead of Barner. Jackson Smith and Jigba, so wide receiver 1. Barner needs a touchdown, really, in order to be, I think, even remotely fantasy relevant. I'll stream him, but I'm not going to do anything but stream him. He's not a guy that I'm going to sit on my roster long term. I'm not going to spend a lot of fab on him.
No, AJ Barner don't get me wrong, he's getting starter snaps, but he's not relevant enough in this offense to make it worth your while. The red zone volume he's getting has been great, but and you know what's kind of crazy right now? Before this Monday night game, AJ Barner is sitting at tight end 10 in PPR leagues. Like, I didn't even know he got there so quickly, thanks to just 4 touchdowns on this season. And listen, that's not nothing, but those catches are also coming off of games where he only catches 2 balls, where he only catches 3 balls. He happened to catch 7 passes against a shootout against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Against the Jaguars, I'm not so sure that's going to happen again, but it's not reliable volume that I'm ready to drop more than about 5% of my fab on. And that's pretty generous.
Here's the thing. Before week 5, he was tight end 20. So he had a boom game. It bumped him up. Unless you're streaming tight ends, I have no interest in AJ Barner. However, our next one, Mason Taylor, the rookie over in New York, I do have a little bit more interest in him. 12 targets last week, 6 in week 3, 7 in week 4. Then he gets the 12 this week against Dallas, 9 catches, 17.7 PPR points with those numbers. He didn't get a touchdown, but he was still fantasy relevant. The volume's there. I don't think that Alan Lazard and Josh Reynolds are going to be much competition for targets. Mason Taylor's an ad for me right now. If you need a tight end and you're looking for someone you can hold on to maybe a little bit more long-term, I think he might be the guy.
So I wrote about this in the tight end section of today's waiver wire article that you can find on optimusfantasy.com. Please check it out after the show. We have that article right there in the read section. Okay.
I figured it out. I got it.
So I cover the tight ends every single week in that article, and I definitely made sure to cover Mason Taylor. He got 12 targets against the Dallas Cowboys, caught 9 of them for 67 yards. He is the clear second passing recipient from Justin Fields behind Garrett Wilson. This was pretty much expected from me from Justin Fields this season, because when Justin Fields cannot find his first read, he loves going to the tight end for his second read. That's Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor, the 21-year-old rookie out of LSU, already caught 25 targets over the last 3 games combined. And out of that, he caught 18 of them. So he's got some chemistry already built up with Justin Fields, which you'll love to see. I am considering him a high-end tight end too. He may not have fallen in the end zone yet, but that's also because the Jets have 5 passing touchdowns total in the season. They are not very good at getting in the end zone from Justin Fields' arm. But, you know, that might change this coming season as they're 0-5, but regardless, it's not going to ruin the PPR value for Mason Taylor. Go get him. I recommend spending about 8 to 10% of your fab on Mason Taylor, being that he's high tight end 2 status. And you're probably not going tight end in your lineups if you need a flex. But yeah, Taylor absolutely needs to be rostered at this point.
Yep, I completely agree. Last one, Cade Otton we got into it yesterday about this one on our start sit show between you, me, and Lou, because I like Cade Otton, and I think he's a very situationally good start in fantasy. But when those situations are coming. I knew it was coming this weekend. Seattle doesn't cover the tight end well. Chris Godwin's still working his way back. No Mike Evans. And it wasn't a huge game. Cade Otton didn't score a touchdown, but he had 5 targets, 4 catches for 81 yards. It's good for 12.1 PPR fantasy points. Here's what I'll say. This is another streamer, but there are going to be weeks where if you have a deep enough bench and you can just hold Cade Otton to start him here and there, he's a guy that I would flex some weeks. Baker Mayfield seems to just really like Cade. He heated up at the end of last season. He was someone that Mike Reedy and I were talking about consistently from week 10 on our DFS show, someone who was an inexpensive tight end to roster, so you could pay up other places. I still think that applies, and I think Cade Otton, again, more of a situational option, but I think he's worth a roster spot, and this is a good week to stream him. Week 6, they've got a decent matchup against San Francisco. I think that he can see some volume against the 49ers this weekend.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be intense volume, but at least we know that his floor is anywhere in the 3 to 5 target range, which can be enough to fall into the end zone. But if you're looking for a tight end to depend on, I don't want to do it. I would much rather go get Mason Taylor. I would much rather go get other tight ends if they're still on your waiver wire by chance, like a Brenton Strange. But Brenton Strange is already rostered in more than like 40-something% of leagues, so we didn't decide to cover him here tonight. But go get Brenton Strange if he's available too. Now, back to Cade Otton. He did have that breakout last year in his third season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which tight ends usually need about 2 seasons to find their groove, and that's what Otton did last year. Now, that being said, he's not exactly the highlight of this offense. He's a guy that can be a safety blanket for Baker Mayfield, but with how Baker Mayfield likes to go crazy in this offense, Baker Mayfield is such an intense, tough guy, he doesn't need a safety blanket. He'd rather headbutt you without his helmet on. So...
Look, he was QB2 on the season heading into tonight. That's Baker Mayfield. That's the Baker Mayfield I've wanted to see since he was in Cleveland. My Christmas gift this year, I only want one thing. A Baker Mayfield creamsicle jersey. The home. It's got to be the full creamsicle. It can't be the white with the creamsicle numbers. It's got to be the full creamsicle jersey. All right.
I think I'm the only one who hates those creamsicle jerseys. I think they're hideous, but I might be alone in that.
See, I grew up thinking they were hideous, but then they got their new pewter and red uniforms, and I really just don't like them that much. I would really much rather, I don't know. I'm crazy. Brian Thomas Jr. already has 34 yards. I just saw him make a nice catch.
Woo!
Look, I'm all for Brian Thomas Jr. getting that love. It just hasn't really come from Trevor Lawrence nearly enough. We've got this user whose name I'm not going to say on the air because this is a family show, but this person got offered A.J. Brown for Jalen Waddle. They're already heavily on Miami. They've got Achane. They've got Darren Waller. Do you take the trade? A.J. Brown for Jalen Waddle straight up.
Yeah, I think I do it because the Eagles have shown that they want to get A.J. Brown involved more, and Jalen Waddle is in a complete disaster of an offense. I don't see the Dolphins firing Mike, as I've been calling him, Mike McDonald, because I'm associating him with Ronald McDonald because I think Mike is an absolute clown at head coach, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, if I'm offered A.J. Brown from Waddle, I'm taking it because I don't want any part of this Dolphins offense outside of Devon Achane. So... yeah, give me A.J. Brown. The Eagles are starting to feed him the football more after the frustration with Nick Sirianni being a dumb when it comes to the passing game. And A.J. Brown is still getting wide receiver 1 targets. They just haven't always paid off just because he went 2 for 9 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which was crazy. And then he went 5 for 8. He didn't happen to fall in the end zone, but at least that's volume that has potential to it. I think the Eagles will figure it out, though, by... just before the bye week. They get to face the New York Giants twice over the next 3 weeks. So give me all the A.J. Brown I can handle, baby. I want him against those Giants defenders. No offense, Carly.
A.J. Brown is an elite talent. He's an elite player. He's an elite level wide receiver. Those guys always find a way, right? Jerry Rice found a way until he was 40 years old to get it done. A.J. Brown's that type of player. I'm not saying he's going to do it till he's 40, but right now he is that type of player. Jalen Waddle, Jalen Waddle is not. Jalen Waddle had a great game. Congratulations. We love to see it, but this isn't going to be a consistent thing in the Miami offense. I want A.J. Brown all day.
Yep. Thank you for your question, too. Love the username.
Yeah.
Just a shame that we can't say it.
We got Sean Richardson also over on YouTube. Hello, friends. Looking for some dynasty advice. Have a chance to trade Tet McMillan for Brian Thomas Jr. straight. Any thoughts? I know they're both good players. Just curious who will get a better situation first. I would make that trade. I would like to get Tet McMillan.
Well, to trade away Tet for BTJ or the other way around?
No. I wouldn't move Tet. If he's holding on to Tet, if you've got Tet, keep Tet.
Yes, I
He's
agree.
the
You
only
have to
thing
keep
working
Tet.
in Carolina. He's the only thing working in Carolina, and he seems to be somewhat quarterback proof, at least for right now, with Bryce Young. So I would take him over Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, Ted McMillan is him. I knew he was going to be him coming out of college, being that it's not like the Carolina Panthers have anybody better as it is. He is their cornerstone of their offense. He is their future. You don't need to trade Ted McMillan to go get Brian Thomas Jr. I get the buy low thing because maybe the BTJ shareholder might be panicking and wants to get rid of him, but you don't want to give away a young, promising guy like McMillan just to get BTJ. If anything, you got to trade away an older guy like a Mike Evans. Not that he's going to have much trade value being injured right now, but if you can find an older wide receiver to get rid of for BTJ, do that.
Yep. Oh, 1,000%. All right, we've got Iggy on YouTube. Hi, guys. Would you trade Achane and T. Higgins for Quinshawn Judkins and Rome Odunze? Yeah, in about half a second. Give me that Judkins Rome Odunze side right now.
So,
boom,
Iggy,
done.
if this is an offer that's currently on the table waiting for you to accept, you better smash that, my man or person, just because, yeah, you better go get Judkins and Rome for HN and Higgins, being that these are, HN and Higgins are on two disaster offenses that you got to get off of sooner than later, being that we're now in October and we're seeing that how these teams really are. So, yeah, go get them if that offer's waiting for you. Now, if it hasn't been offered yet, Iggy, you may want to talk to the Judkins and Rome shareholder first to make sure they're even for sale, because otherwise, if you're just doing blind back and forth trades, you're never going to get anything done. See if they're even for sale first before you do it.
All right, so for those of you at home, 3rd and goal for Jacksonville. They try and punch it in twice. They can't quite get there. Trevor Lawrence tries to go over the top from the 2, and are you ready? Are you ready for what happens, Evan?
I'm watching it live right now.
And that is a fumble, folks. This is why I am out on Trevor Lawrence. His lack of situational awareness makes me crazy.
Are you freaking kidding me, Trevor Lawrence?
It makes me insane.
God.
All right, guys, we've only got a few minutes left here, so I want to roll into these kickers real quick. I'm not going to say a lot about them. This is what I will say, because we're not kicker analysts, right? We look at situation and opportunity. Well, yeah. We look at situation and opportunity, right? These 3 kickers, Daniel Carlson, Brandon McManus, Chad Ryland, and I would also like to toss in Matt Prater, who's still not rostered nearly enough. If you're heading into week 6 and you stream kickers, these are the guys you should be targeting. I love Brandon McManus, high scoring Green Bay offense. He's going to get opportunities. He's still got that big leg and they trust him from a distance. So if you're in a league that prioritizes longer kicks for more points, he's a guy that I definitely would get on my roster right now.
100%. And yeah, so the order that you should be getting these kickers is McManus, Carlson, and then Ryland. So McManus has quite the juicy matchup this coming week. I guess we can call it this coming week against the Cincinnati Bengals. This Bengals team, if you have not been watching football all year long, you are missing out on a beautiful disaster that is taking place in Cincinnati, Ohio, because that former Super Bowl contender from 2021 is no longer that team that it used to be. It is sad that it's an offense that can't get it going and a defense that's even worse. Poor Trey Hendrickson, man.
I know, and he just re-signed, but this team will be back. Eventually, the Bengals will be better. They're going to get rid of Zach Taylor. They're going to move on from Joe Burrow. I really do believe that. And not that Joe Burrow's a bad quarterback, but I do think he's been a little overhyped for what his actual skill level is in the league. When you give a guy elite receivers like that, he's going to be good. If he's even like a barely above mediocre type quarterback, which I'm not saying that's necessarily Joe Burrow. Just making a statement here. Last thing we're going to do here, a handful of players we don't want you to go out and get. First of all is Dylan Gabriel. Yeah, he looked decent on a Sunday morning game in London in his debut. This is still an offense that you cannot trust outside of Quinshon Judkins, David Njoku, and maybe Harold Fannin, Evan. He should not be rostered in any format unless, obviously, in Dynasty, you can tax him. You've already drafted him. In redraft, if you've got a really super deep bench and you're a 2 QB league, maybe toss him on just to see what happens. Maybe he keeps this train going. It's unlikely, but otherwise I want nothing to do with Gabriel. And Taysom Hill, I feel like, is kind of the same thing. We've seen him have some, value here and there, but it's not enough for me to want to go out and get him right now.
Yeah, so here's the list, ladies and gentlemen. Do not go get Dylan Gabriel. Do not go get Isaiah Davis. Do not go get Xavier Hutchinson. Do not go get Tyquan Thornton, despite the fact that he's got 2 big catches so far for low-end flex value. Do not go get Luke McCaffrey. Do not go get Jake Tongas, and do not go get Taysom Hill. They are all fool's gold. They all have different situations that they happen to have a breakout game based off of their respective game scripts, injuries. Jake Tongas is not going to be keeping that starting job for much longer when Kittle comes back. Luke McCaffrey is too inconsistent to be depended on, being that Terry McLaurin's hurt. Once he comes back, he's pretty much going to be shut out to kick returns. Tyquan Thornton is just good enough for like a deep throw, low-end flex value type of thing, where if he falls into the end zone off of like a 50-some yard touchdown pass, congratulations, he did that, but we don't want to depend on that in fantasy football. Same thing with Xavier Hutchinson, who happened to fall into the end zone twice for the Houston Texans. Don't look to that every single week. He's not even the wide receiver 2 in that offense. Isaiah Davis doesn't get enough work behind Breece. They clearly want to roll with Breece with Braylon Allen gone. And like you were just talking about with Dylan Gabriel, it's too new of an offense. He needs time to get good. Maybe he'll be worth an add in 2 quarterback leagues later this season, but I'm out on Dylan Gabriel for 1 quarterback leagues.
Yeah, you can't be excited about him. He's a smaller quarterback in a crappy offense. I loved what I saw in the debut. Yeah, he threw a couple of touchdown passes. It's not something that's going to happen every week. This Cleveland team is just flat out bad. Yeah. We got this one from Tron Force here. He wants to know, is Tyler Bass coming back this week? I don't believe he is. I believe we've got another week of Matt Prater.
I would love to hear what Lou thinks about this too, because I think the Bills fans want to keep Matt Prater as opposed to Tyler Bass, because Tyler Bass's leg, it's as strong as it is not as reliable as Matt Prater.
Nope. Matt Prater's been gold. I would rather have Prater over Tyler Bass. I hope he stays, because I've got Matt Prater in a couple of leagues. I don't have Tyler Bass, and I've been benefiting greatly from it. All right, folks, it has been a pleasure to have you tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you are here, or you're listening to the audio version, or you're watching it later, please make sure to like this video, like this podcast, subscribe or follow the channel you're watching it on. We greatly appreciate it. The more of you we have around, the more cool stuff we can do. If you've got a question we did not answer, you can head over to our Discord server. We've got waiver wire advice, dynasty discussions, best NFL bets, DFS advice, and a ton more. We can help you navigate your season. Check out the link in the show description to head on over there. 24/7, we're really going. And then tonight, before we get into week 6 and before these injuries and these bye weeks just crush your absolute freaking soul, unlock your fantasy advantage with all of our data tools. 25% off your first 4 months with the promo code OptimusFall. We've got your back. We're here to help you win, guys. Evan, thanks so much for tuning in. I need to go eat dinner before I hop on a podcast and watch the rest of this game and put my kid to bed, and about 40,000 other things I have to do here. But it's been a blast. Evan, thank you so much every Monday. Guys, we'll be back next Monday with more waiver wire advice for week 7. I'll be back on Wednesday with Casey Kasem for the flagship show. But until then, folks, for Evan Sather, I'm Nate Paulvote. Have a fantastic rest of your Monday night, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.